So, commercialization, scale, and sustainability is a very important part of the process of actually bringing products and services to market. And when we start with an idea, prototype, an MVP, whatever it might be, going through the process of turning that into something that can be manufactured at scale, that can meet the user needs, that can be accessible, that can be part of the workflow, their natural workflow, is actually a very complex process. So today we have four very impressive speakers here to talk to us about precisely these things: commercializing, scaling, and then sustaining the business over time. So our first speaker is Lina Syed of Gradian Health Systems. She serves as the CEO of Gradian and directs its business and strategic development, applying experience for more than 7 years in various leadership positions at Gradian, and before that in the financial industry. She was previously Gradian's COO, and her career spans the global health and financial sectors, with years of experience working in JP Morgan Chase's nonprofit healthcare group and consulting for companies in the fields of diagnostics and maternal health. Lina has an MBA from the MIT Sloan School of Management and a BA in journalism and mass communications from NYU. Our second speaker is Rob Scharar. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Okay. Rob is the founder and CEO of FCA Corp. He has over 50 years of experience in wealth management, tax, and accounting. He began his career at Cooper's Lybrand, which is today PwC, and went from there to work for U.S. Trust, and then formed First Commonwealth Associates, the predecessor of FCA Corp., with the goal of offering fee-based independent financial planning. He then ultimately grew FCA and became head of its the head portfolio manager for Commonwealth International Series Trust, home to 5 mutual funds: Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Africa, the Global Fund, and a real estate securities fund. And with a vision for opportunities in Africa, FCA began investing on the continent and formed AfriCap LLC, a private fund that owns companies in a variety of industries, including the healthcare industry. Rob also serves on the board of directors for public companies listed on the Malawi Stock Exchange. Our third speaker is Patricia Coffey. Patricia is the portfolio leader for maternal, newborn, and reproductive health technology at PATH. She has worked with PATH on development and testing of reproductive health technologies through user-centered product development for the last 15 years. She holds a PhD in applied population research from the University of Exeter and a master's degree from UCLA. And then finally, our last speaker is Noah Mataruse. Noah is an innovation manager at UNICEF with 8 years of experience working in UNICEF country offices in low and middle income countries, and 4 years in the UNICEF supply division leading the innovation of health products. He's driven the innovation of products fit for purpose for low and middle income countries where erratic power and adverse environmental conditions are ever-present challenges. He received his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Zimbabwe. So without further ado, I'm going to let the experts actually talk to you about this.
So I'm Lina Syed. I'm the CEO of Gradian Health Systems. I've been with Gradian actually for a little over 10 years. I was employee number 4 at Gradian with the real focus on distribution and commercialization and scaling. And so really happy to be talking about this topic. We really focus on anesthesia, critical care, and oxygen therapy. And the reason why we have kept the focus on those 3 sort of interventions and health segments is because there's a lot of overlapping stakeholders, providers, biomedical engineers across anesthesia, critical care, and oxygen therapy. And that leads to a lot of efficiencies around our operations and our training, which has really been helpful as we think about scaling up and commercialization to kind of focus in on the same kind of cadre of health providers. Gradian was really built around the UAM. The UAM came first and Gradian was built around it. It's our flagship product. The UAM is an anesthesia machine that can work without an external source of oxygen and without electricity if needed. It kind of adapts to the environment as needed. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on our products. We have our product team here, or Joey and Mo raising their hands over there if anyone has more of the details wants more of the details on the technical. But one of the things that we learned very, very early on when we put the UAM out there is that technology is not enough. We all love the technology. That's the sexy thing. We all, that's what gets us excited. This was only as important as the service and training, actually, that we brought with it. And really, before we started doing any sales, we focused on creating an ecosystem around the product. This is a large piece of capital equipment and only as valuable as, if someone invests in buying one, it only is as valuable as long as it's working, right? And so before I actually jump, I'm going to skip a slide. This is where our model was developed. And we see these pillars as equally as important, and really all of them have immense impact and can't work without the other. And so we really have equipment, training, and technical support. And when we first started at Gradian, I remember really we didn't focus on sales or scale up. We tried to build a network of biomedical engineers, distributors, trainers, to really be able to send through a product successfully. And the reason that worked is once you have that ecosystem, sending on multiple products becomes a lot easier because you can really leverage that investment, that time. And so since that point, we have expanded our product portfolio. Something to really note here, there's actually not a lot of innovation in the actual products themselves. They're either kind of combined features or traditional machines that come with that ecosystem. There is a gap for the training and the service. And so we've been able to expand to a more conventional anesthesia machines, to a conventional anesthesia machine, ventilators, and this is our second version of a ventilator. So the products have also evolved as the markets have evolved. And we have one multi-patient oxygen therapy device that's in R&D right now. But these products have all gone through the same sort of network of distributors and engineers. There we go. So this has been said so many times. Localization is everything. Making sure that your entire business is very locally driven, and that's not just sales and distributors and biomedical engineers and doctors. We have a team of accountants, we have warehousing partners, we have lawyers that we talk to in different countries. And so, we've heard the challenges with customs, with all of that. There are people who can solve for this, but they are all where you are working, and in our situation in sub-Saharan Africa predominantly. And so Gradian has nationally scaled in at least 3 countries, but we are working in over 30 countries, so it's about 2,500 pieces of equipment, over 1,000 facilities in 30 countries. And I really want to note that the way these were distributed is 95% has all been sales, winning tenders, individual sales. This is all a sales model, and very few donations other than strategic ones here and there. But this has all been revenue generating sales. A little bit about the Gradian team. One of the things we decided also early on is we would actually operate fairly lean. We are a 23-person full-time team. However, the consultants of doctors and biomedical engineers that we work with span over 30, in 30 countries, over 100 people. And our team has also gone more local. We started off in New York as our headquarters. That stopped making sense very quickly. And so most of our staff growth has happened in Tanzania and Kenya. We also have an employee in India, and a lean staff sort of in New York. But it is really important for us that we remain lean on a full-time basis because, and focus more on consultants and distributors in country. So Gradian's business model, and I really think there could be a whole panel just on this, so I'm going to try and spend a little bit of time on it, but not too much. We have a hybrid model. It's a blended revenue model. And what that means is we generate sales, and that covers our manufacturing costs, our costs of goods sold. Any margins we do make go right back into training and service. We also have grants, and specifically the Nick Simons Foundation has funded Gradian since the beginning. And I am happy to go into even those numbers. I think my main takeaway for everybody here is it's not actually the amount, but the type of funding we received that helped us scale. It was unrestricted funding, which is very rare in global health. and very much needed. But we got unrestricted funding from the beginning, which allowed us to really test out various strategies. Again, not focus on sales up front, focus more on that network of that infrastructure, that ecosystem. And so right now, between sales and grants, we cover kind of our overhead, the manufacturing costs, and the blend kind of covers the training and service. You'll still see us out there fundraising for service and training, because we're going to get into that, as that is really what we try and solve for more than anything else on a daily basis. Defining commercialization. So I think this word is often overused, maybe misused, because we all have such different organizations and products. And so I'm going to put a definition up there that is very broad. It's really just the process of bringing a product or service to market. And the reason I'm keeping it very broad is there are so many factors that impact what commercialization means to products, to companies, and we really need to consider those before asking why is this commercializing, why is this not commercializing, because the definitions are very different. I want to start with the first one, financial gains, or what is the financial model? Again, very different whether you have a model like ours. Do you have to make a 30% margin on it? Can you break even? Is it a donation model? But you do need to define it up front. We have organizations here that are VC funded. That is a very different financial model than those who are fully grant funded and are looking to donate or be able to subsidize the cost of things. Which really dovetails into the next thing. What does it even mean to scale? Is it a geographic scale? Is it quantities? This is very product specific. Anyone who has worked with diagnostics knows that that number is very different than capital equipment, and the reagents and what those numbers look like is not the same as selling an anesthesia machine. And so also what it means to scale, what national scale means, what is success being defined early on is really helpful. And I think we're all working in very different, we have to just customize what that looks like. Supporting the customer base. There's been a lot of talk about service and training, but even that is not the same for everybody. Even in our own product portfolio, certain products require a lot more training than others. Some require more customer support. Again, it's very different depending on the product. Certain products can be swapped out. Others have to have more training for biomedical engineers to fix them on site. And so really defining that up front. And then the last one that I think that really stands out is what does social impact mean for a specific product. Obviously, we're all in this to improve health outcomes. I do think the focus on lives saved is actually a little problematic when you're looking at devices, because as we've said it over and over again, there's no silver bullet, but we're all required often to talk about lives saved when it's really not attributable to one intervention or one product. I know Mr. Laerdal presented some great stats. I know they're still early for Tanzania. Tanzania has spent, I want to say, close to $500 million building health centers in the last few years. They've invested a lot into training and to equipment. That's not going to be attributable if they really have reduced maternal mortality rates by 70% to one intervention or one training. And so we also need to start finding metrics that take into account all the various interventions, because the pressure for us to say our anesthesia machine saved a life is actually think it sort of limits innovation and our ability to talk about products. Nothing new about this to this crowd. This is the equipment graveyard. The only reason I want to show it, though, is there's two reasons this exists. Two major reasons. One is no one knows what to do with old equipment, even when it does belong in a graveyard. That is a whole different problem that hopefully one day someone will solve. But what we're all trying to avoid is the preemptive entry into the graveyard, right? And so what we're looking at is products that maybe they just didn't like that went in there, that didn't work, that didn't have a service contract, that never worked in the first place, weren't appropriate for the setting. And so really what we are trying to prevent is preemptively, all products have a lifetime also. And so at some point they will stop working, but how do you preemptively, You don't want them to preemptively go in there. And the first way to do that is recognizing, knowing your customer. These are both hospitals in Uganda, and they both have challenges. The top hospital, while better resourced from an equipment standpoint, might have training issues, might also still have trouble getting warranties that, can support that equipment, or it's really expensive. The hospital, while at the bottom has more infrastructure issue, has exponentially higher volumes, much higher volumes. And so when we look at these two hospitals in Uganda, they might not like a Gradian product up top, like they don't need it, right? But they might have other needs. And so in recognizing that the products are not for every hospital in any given country and how different they are, and then there could be a whole other layer for the health center 4s and 3s and 1s and what products work for them. Okay, sustaining commercialization. So the main kind of the thing I wanted to talk about is a day in the life of Gradian. And the reason that is because I think we often are looking for good reason, because we all want to have that highest impact. What is the solution? How do we scale? How do we do it? And it's actually very unsexy stuff. Operations is the key to commercialization. And I have a lot of the Gradian team here who actually runs a lot of that, including our COO here. It really starts with the product oversight. And again, our product team, it's not just like this is a device and it works. They're looking at it every day, seeing, are there issues? Is it breaking? What's the next evolution of it? How do we improve the product? Logistics and warehousing, that's not just centralized warehousing. Where do you warehouse spare parts? How do you get them there from point A to point B quickly? How do you know what spare parts are needed? How do you diagnostically know, what's happening on site to get the right spare parts there? And we're going to talk a lot about technical training and clinical training and customer support. But the majority of the Gradian team, consultants and full-time, is working on our operations, actually. The sales team is actually one of our smallest teams at Gradian. So this is your standard picture of a training, right? We have simulation-based training. We think they're highly effective. This is a simulation lab we helped develop in Tanzania, which we're really proud of. But that's not what our team sees every day. This is a Salesforce dashboard. And our Salesforce lead, our head of data, is here as well. We run off dashboards. And so this is a real dashboard. This is our latest dashboard for trainings. And so when you press any one of these in Salesforce, you would get hospital name, country, how many providers you need to train, who are the trainers, you have training reports. And so, for example, our team is preparing for 29 trainings. Those are sales that have happened that require training. And so we are really focused a lot on that. We also have a customer outreach team, that 357. Those are just proactive outreaches to customers, checking in with them, seeing how things are going. And so I'm going to spend a little more time on technical support. I know I have 10 minutes left, so this will be the focus. For technical support, we talk about training biomedical engineers and spare parts and all of that. This is just the preventative maintenance board. This is visiting a hospital preemptively to try and keep it, in really good shape so it doesn't break. But our team is currently at 1,000, upcoming preventative maintenance visits. And all of that requires people logistics, coordinating with the customer. And again, you have a team that's just focused on this and on preventative maintenance on an ongoing basis. And then this is a live board. We have 117 broken machines right now at Gradian, right? That is, I wish it was 0. I wish it was 5, That is something everyone needs to be prepared for. Machines break, right? They all break. We all work to make robust equipment, but both whether it's in transport, whether something happens in manufacturing, whether it's on-site, that 117 also includes training issues. Someone who is not trained maybe properly might think it's broken. It also could include a machine that's 10 years old or 1 year old, right? And so we have a team focused just on this and kind of closing out these cases. But I really think from day one, whatever your device is, you should assume it's going to break at some point. While every machine has a lifetime, you want to extend that lifetime as much as possible. But they break, and the real important thing is fixing it. And the reason is any impact number that we use is just patients supported by the machine, so 2.2 million. This is a compounding number based on service, not sales, right? So if you have a UAM that can support 100 patients a year, for example, it's either 100, but if you get it working for 5 years, then you've compounded that one investment over 5 years in supporting that many more patients, or 10 years. And so the service is actually what makes that number compound. It's actually not the sales. And so when we think of scaling, when we think of commercialization, we think of impact, service is hand in hand with it and the operations around it. And just training BMETs is not enough. You actually need a whole team that is just dedicated to that. And that is truly what the Gradian team is, the majority of what the Gradian team does. Okay, conclusion. It's really about feedback. My team will make fun of me. I talk about feedback all the time. I try and make feedback as direct as possible because our customers are as direct as possible. If a nurse or a doctor calls you, they're not going to sugarcoat something. They're going to say, it's broken. I hate your machine. I don't like your machine. It's not working. It didn't support me while I was doing this. And so if we internally are open to that, it helps us respond to customers better. And so really, because we've all spent so much time on the products and our business, it's very easy to get defensive, be like, you don't know how to use it, maybe. But actually protect the customer before you defend your company, which actually does support the company long term, but really being able to listen and take that feedback. If someone doesn't like the product, someone doesn't like the product, listen to why and how it gets better. But that's something about our company culture that we spend a lot of time on, including within our internal staff, to make sure we are as direct and clear as possible. And I'm going to give a very quick example. Our team was just at a very large hospital in Tanzania that actually has a large catchment area, high volumes. And they purchased a lot of ventilators during the COVID era. And we had a different ventilator at the time. It's a little bit more robust, a little simpler. It's gotten more sophisticated post-COVID. People know ventilators better. They want waveforms. They've actually sidelined preemptively, putting our stuff in the graveyard, did not really like the product anymore. They wanted something more sophisticated. And so we did agree that that's part of our warranty and are swapping it out for our new ventilator, which has all of that. But we went there and they were just like, yeah, we don't want this anymore. And so it's expensive. It's not easy to do. But that is sort of where we are at right now, and we are really proud of the work, but also just always trying to improve it as well. And the only way to do that is to really be listening to the customer in the most open way as possible. That is really it for me. I think I got 5 minutes early, right?
What I really loved was the number of broken machines, because I think putting that up there is not an easy thing to do. But it shows that you care enough to know that number. And I think it's really easy to gloss over that. And so I really, really appreciate you having that number up there. My question is, how do you fund the service and that side of it? Because I know there was kind of the Venn diagram of for-profit, fund, and grant. So,
it's a great question, and we currently have on average a 3-year warranty when we sell, and a lot of that is built into some of it into the upfront costs, some we budget through grants. However, we are realizing the lifetime of a lot of our machines is much longer than that, and so that's something we really are trying to figure out, whether it is going back to the customer to see if they have money for an extended warranty. We've tried fundraising. We're trying to figure out how do we extend it to to the lifetime of the machine, right? We don't want to go beyond what's reasonable. But currently we are able to fund it through that combination. Eventually, as the installed base grows, that's an also exponential number. And so that is actually the biggest thing we are trying to figure out, because right now what happens if a hospital calls me, whether it's off warranty or on warranty a lot of times, and they're like, this is our only anesthesia machine and it's broken, we're going to send a tech there, right? And even if it's not at that point financially sustainable. So actually you'll be hearing us talk a lot about that, because I do think that's where funding, if there is going to be more restricted funding, should go into, is these operational hurdles around service and extending the life of a product. So we're able to fund 3 to 4 years through the sales and the grant. What we're seeing is the lifetime is much longer than that for especially the UAM. So a lot of it is TBD still and trying to figure it out.
Thank you so much. And it's exciting to see the number of devices that is currently being used by different facilities. My question is more or less related to what has been asked, but in the line of spare parts, consumables, and accessories. I'm wondering, how do you handle that, especially if the devices are post-warranty? And the second question attached to that is, I'm not sure how you handle your devices that have already been decommissioned. Do they also end up in the same graveyards we saw? Or is there anything that you do with them to ensure that they don't add up to the numbers that we have already seen in your screen? Thank you.
Yep. Great question. In terms of spare parts, we actually try and make spare parts very available, very locally and regionally. So we have spare parts hubs available, which is not the same. We can't supply all consumables. So for example, anesthetic agent for the UAM, we do not supply that. And so we really do work with governments and different procurement agencies to make sure hospitals have those. But in terms of spare parts, they are included in the warranty. And once they go past warranty, we have started asking where there is funding for just the spare parts and we supply the service, or vice versa. But right now, it's service and spare parts are included in our warranty, and we try and keep it as local as possible. To your second question, honestly, right now, we don't have a lot of machines that have been decommissioned, to be completely honest. I don't know how things get out of the graveyard. I have not figured out where medical equipment can go, and to the students at Rice, that, if I had to tell you, is an innovation or that's needed. There's actually no real answer to that. What we have tried doing is when we swap something out, we take it out and use it for its spare parts. So those ventilators I was just talking about, if we were able to get those back, we can at least use it for its spare parts and recycle parts of it. But the graveyard is a much bigger issue that I don't have an answer to. But we do try and manage with spare parts and also, again, recycle as much of any old machinery as we can.
Hi, my name is Anita Darton-Gardine. I'm with Global Strategies. I have 2 questions, and first I have to thank you for sharing a unique story. How is it that you found the Nick Simons Foundation, that they funded your staff, and are there like organizations that companies like mine, nonprofits like mine who love to be like Gradian, how do we find those relationships? And secondly, you mentioned that you have the head of data of Salesforce here today. Curious to know what Salesforce's interest is in this product.
I think I misquoted that. He leads our Salesforce platform, but he does not work at Salesforce.
Salesforce.
Yeah,
Okay.
He's our head of data over there.
Okay.
Ollie can raise his hand.
Okay, thank you.
So I will answer that one quickly. But they actually have been a great partner. We're part of they have a nonprofit platform, so you do get a lot of discounts working with them on that. So this is an unintentional plug to Salesforce, but they have been very good partners.
I was curious if they were funding you.
No funding there, but they were just really are good partners for it. Nick Simons Foundation, they actually found us. They are the founders of Gradian, actually. So the foundation family, Jim and Marilyn Simons, Jim Simons passed away a few months ago, but they have really put all their money into philanthropic funding, and they actually discovered the UAM in Nepal many years ago and built Gradian around that. So they're actually the founders of it. And so it is a unique story and one we're really grateful for. But the reason I say it's a separate panel, if we actually look at the amount we were given, especially early on, that money does exist, I know pretty definitively, in global health. It just usually comes out in restricted funding. And what they did was just give us unrestricted funding, and that was the game changer. So I wish I could tell you that there was a huge search and we found them. They actually found us and they created Gradian. And so they've been really such a great partner. But the model of their funding, I do think, can be replicated.
Thank you very much for your presentation. My name's Josephina, and I'm a clinician. I'm a clinician who works in Malawi, and I'm very pro working with biomedical engineers, as demonstrated by my work with Nest. And this question isn't really directed just to you, but it's sort of directed to the room as a whole. So what I've been hearing and what we know is that to achieve the SDG is going to be challenging, that within this room, there are lots of great ideas and lots of great minds, and everybody's striving to do the same thing, but in a slightly different way. So they've all got slightly different ideas and different concepts, and everybody believes that their design is the best design that they have, and it's the best piece of equipment. We've also heard the fact that people are trying to survive as companies, and what was the business plan? We had Dragon's Den earlier on. What was the business plan? And we've heard about end users and whether they like machines or whether they don't like machines. Now, as an end user, as I've said, I very much like working with biomedical engineers. I'm going to be ever so slightly controversial, and it sort of represents the point of this conference. But as an end user, it would be great if all of these minds and all of these businesses and all of these academics actually got into a room together and actually forgot about their business and forgot about their research and actually just collectively came up with an idea with the end users which actually could help achieve the SDG. And I know that's the point of the conference, but what's going to happen after the conference is people will go back to their silos and they will work individually on what they're doing. And I would hope that after this conference, people just all come together and break down those professional silos that everybody's working in, be it their companies, be it their academic institutions. And I'm saying that as an academic, I work in an academic institution. I'm also saying as an end user, because I think if we look at the amazing minds which are in this room, and we look at the amazing ideas that are in this room, I think that actually we could succeed in achieving the SDG. And so my plea is, can we forget about the business plans? Can we forget about surviving in terms of companies, but can we actually think about the babies that we're trying to save and collectively come together and do that beyond this conference? So as I said, I'm being controversial and it isn't directed at you because I thought it was a great presentation, but everybody's got these data, charts, there's lots of reinventing the wheel. Why are we reinventing the wheel? Why don't we do it collaboratively?
Do you mind if I respond? I'm actually going to respectfully disagree with that. And while I think these conferences are really important for us to share ideas and talk, and people have very different ways of doing things, and the reinventing the wheel for business models is actually really important because they're not all going to work in the same way. As I said, we have a big piece of capital equipment. If I went to the Nest team and I was like, well, just do this, right? Like, it actually doesn't work, right? They're selling a bundle. Or if I went to We Care Solar, which is also very different. So I do agree that there is more collaboration needed, but actually the creative minds using different strategies is really important because in order to achieve that impact, because there isn't one way to do this. So I would just disagree in the sense that sometimes individual organizations succeeding actually also help lead the way for others, and you take bits and pieces of it. And to think, actually sometimes just thinking about the patient alone can also be problematic because that is an emotional sort of sometimes response, and we're all driven by emotion, of course, but sometimes it's about taking a step back and just being like, but how do we actually do this? And like I said, like, nothing about what I just presented mentions the end user. I mean, not the end user, the patient. All of it is for the end user because that's who we want to support. But our team is people who are good at logistics, people who are good at operations, and people who are good at training. And so taking someone who's really good at logistics and having them focus on the patient is also not necessarily the best way to do things. And so I think I get what you were saying, and I do agree fundamentally, but I do think their diversity in every possible way is really, really important.
So I don't disagree that diversity is important, and I don't disagree with companies existing. So I don't disagree with that. I think as end users, it can be exhausting to go through the process multiple times. And we look at that map and we look at how many companies are in each place across the world. And, I just think that, collaboratively, clinicians need to work more with biomedical engineers, and they need to do that more readily and recognize the importance of biomedical engineers within the team. And actually having cross-collaborative discussions is really important to actually achieve our SDG, is what I am basically imploring.
Get that. Do we have time for one more question? Who's our timekeeper here?
Hello?
Yep. Oh,
Okay.
that way. Okay. Great.
Thank you so much. And I'm Chinyere from a neonatologist in Nigeria. And thanks for your very brilliant presentation. Yeah, when you were speaking, you were talking about commercialization, distribution, spare parts, consumables. And I was just wondering, what will it take to have some transition such that some of this manufacturing is actually done in the low and middle income countries? Because in that way, you're cutting off the transportation, the custom clearance, you're having a wider reach, the distribution bureaucracy, and then you're getting it to those babies that really, really need it. Because we're looking at the SDGs, and this actually transcends across a lot of the presentations that have gone on in this room. Thank you so much.
Your question gave me goosebumps because it is the exact place we should be and what we should be focused on. Actually, COVID highlighted that as many countries hoarded their ventilators and products, and local manufacturing or lack thereof in certain countries led to an even bigger shortage of equipment. So actually what we're working on, I can speak to us, and it's not an easy project, right? Actually, Joey can speak to it a little bit more, our head of product, but we are trying to make, just for example, the UAM much easier, less parts to manufacture so we can bring it locally, actually. That has been what we have been doing for, not part of this presentation, for 2 to 3 years now, is really how do we make this product easier to manufacture, more locally manufactured, the spare parts locally manufactured. So it's actually a really big goal for us. And we do think the capacity exists in a lot of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So we actually don't think there is really an issue in terms of talent or capacity there. But it really is actually about getting the devices in a place where you don't require as many parts, potentially, not fair, Joey, to say, so it is more easily manufactured. So I do think that should be absolutely a huge goal. I know it is a goal of ours. We have a product team also dedicated just to that, so it can be more locally manufactured, because it will eliminate a lot of the operations that we see there. So
Thank you so much.
100%. I don't know if we have one more or.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try
be
and answer
quick.
quickly.
Thanks so much, Sona Shah with Neopenda. I really like the emphasis on the commercial approach, because I do think it often gets forgotten around the logistics and operations and all the other pieces. This is more of a, I guess, a tactical question around commercial launch and expansion. How do you think about expanding and penetrating within a country versus launching in a new country and having impact more broadly? And what are some of the differences that you observe there?
Yep, it's a great question. And it honestly goes back to that infrastructure. So when we're in a place like Tanzania, the reason we've been able to hit national scale is we have the biomedical engineers, we have the distributors, we have the trainers. So actually it is a higher impact for us to continue to expand within a country before we go to another country. And so, and I can tell you many stories of putting 13 machines throughout the DRC, without that infrastructure, and how challenging it was, right? And so I would say saturating as much as possible in a country, maybe going neighboring, because then you have at least the regional support, even if you haven't built the infrastructure, is really important. But it actually all goes back to that service and training. So I generally, we have found the higher impact within countries where we have the infrastructure before we move on to another country. That doesn't mean we say no to new sales in other countries, but we do know we very know upfront the operational cost and burden is much higher to get someone regionally going to a country versus local. So I would say building the infrastructure as local as possible also increases the impact in country level.
Some people define an expert as someone from out of town. Well, unfortunately, I'm from Houston, so it's a little bit difficult for me to claim that. But it's good to have in the audience some Malawians who I recognize, and they will recognize some of the parts of my talk because that is one of the first countries I ever went to in Africa. I know how to spell, but I put the $ in capitalizing to get you to think a little bit out of the box. What I really want to talk about today is what happens to ideas, what happens to business creation in emerging markets. We have our company, FCA Corp, as already mentioned, and thank you for the nice introduction, has been around almost 50 years, and we're a fee-based financial planning company. But we started a New Zealand mutual fund in 1991. In 1995, I had an opportunity to go to Africa, and I sort of got the African whatever you get. And I've been there well over 100 times, and a number of people from our company have been, et cetera. These two beautiful murals you're looking at were painted among 25 different art groups in Malawi who competed in our hotel project to restore a wall that was abandoned in a work area. They almost look lifelike. They're really beautiful. I'm a capitalist. You know, I'm as business-oriented as you'll ever find. Sorry about that. I'm a capitalist, as business-oriented as you'll ever find, but I believe that we have a role to play. We have customers or consumers, and if we want to have consumers in our businesses, they have to have the resources to be able to consume with. So part of our obligation is being able as a business to expand the benefits. It helps us in the end, and it helps those we serve. So as a part of that, and just to give you some feel, we have two quick ways we do that. One is through a private fund called AfriCap. In those companies, we have board seats. We're very involved in training staff, very engaged. Our investors are hands-on. Many of them have been there to help us. They range from medical backgrounds to finance and everything imagined. And that's really what's made us successful. We've had all the investors also helping us build the capacity. We also run the only Africa mutual fund in the United States. Anybody with $200, Schwab, Fidelity, et cetera, can invest in it. But the reason I'm telling you about that is we have on our site a couple things. One is we have this interactive map, and if you want to learn about Africa, I learned early on that Americans know nothing about Africa. I know, for example, you don't go to South Africa to give to Victoria Falls. It's not anywhere near South Africa, right? So if you want to learn more about Africa and you go to our website, you can click on any country and you'll get a little fact information, but if you click deeper, you'll get the CIA fact page on that country. We have economic organizations, we have every stock exchange in Africa, all those things, because I found we had to educate people. And so really, I think you would find it a resource if you're in a country, if you want to learn more about it. It's a quick way to get some facts, and we'd suggest you use that as a source. To show you that we have legitimacy, I'm sharing with you a couple of our impact initiatives. What we've done, the Art Malawi project is just an example of that. In one of the pictures you see my wife and I and my son presenting awards to some of the artists. Now, some of the local schools bring children there to see what an art exhibit looks like, things that they would not otherwise see what their work would cultivate into. And the three gentlemen standing next to my wife and I and my son all were in the same orphanage as children. And they were one of the groups that painted that. And the work is just really beautiful. We get a lot of great comments on it. We also participated in the first open heart surgeries at the Blantyre Adventist Hospital. Hearts for Mission did those. I'm not a surgeon. I didn't do any of that. But we helped facilitate that program. They're now having their third heart camp this November. And these 7 or 8 students, or young people, I know that at least one of them would not be here today because of the heart issue they had. So it was dramatic. And to show you how helping one helps another, I am a successful survivor of a mini CABG. If you don't know what that is, it's a heart bypass I had in May. And when I told the local doctors that I was going to get a second opinion, they were very open to that. But they were shocked when I said it involves some doctors who do heart surgery in Africa. And I was able to call the team, some of them are US-based, and they walked my wife and I through, she's a nurse, some questions that we could just ask. So you never know where one good deed hopefully will bring about another. And so in life, there's a lot of trails you go down, And that's a good example of how these things can be very helpful. The other thing that we did is, if I push the right button here. We are shareholders in a private hospital in Malawi. We invested there because we believed in the community and we wanted to show that. Any of you there know Mayawatha? And it provides a valuable service in that community. It's building a new children's pediatric wing. We hope to build an orthopedic wing there. And it's been very comforting to go through there and see the number of people that are being helped by that hospital. It's just one of a number of hospitals in the country. I attended a wellness day. Have you ever been a wellness day at the Adventist Hospital? It's when all the parents, moms bring the children in. Two of my neighbors wrote a book on early childhood development. Their church bought hundreds of them. We helped them get over there. And they trained the matrons at the local orphanages. They trained our staff at the Riles Hotel. They did programs for the Wellness Day where they would have these programs for the moms on early childhood development. And so there's lots of things. I just want to let you know we're involved in the health space as an owner, as a charitable donor, so to speak. But the real reason I'm here today is to say, why is it that people cannot get money for going into these markets? Well, it's no different than the U.S. It's a barrier today to do startup businesses. But I will take credit for inventing the first photograph loan in Malawi. Many years ago in Indie Fund, when people came to borrow, everybody wanted collateral. Well, nobody has collateral. They have maybe their brain, but they certainly don't have a lot of collateral. Everybody's relying on grants. They're often detached from commercial reality. You also find the interest rate. How would you like to be paying 30% for a loan? That's the current rate in Malawi if you're a good credit. Try to get some dollars right now in a lot of emerging market countries. Try to buy the replacement bulb for your radiology machine, which we tried to do in one of our units. You can't get the hard currency to import it. So a lot of issues. There's a lack of angel funds, people that are willing to invest in people hoping it'll work. There's a lot of regulatory compliance within those countries as well as the U.S. As a U.S. investor, the burdens I put on as a U.S. investor to make a 10% investment in a business that might only have $10,000 would cost me $25,000 a year in compliance cost. So there's all, and in Malawi and other, we're not just in Malawi, but in all these countries, same issue. There are too few mentors, too few people willing to give of themselves to help. Well, there's not a lot of role models. A lot of the entrepreneurs are very, very small level entrepreneurs. And so they themselves have not been through that process. There's a lack of interdisciplinary cooperation. Somebody used the word silos before. Everybody's a silo. Even though you're trying to accomplish the same thing, I had a meeting with a number of the institutions in Malawi, their charitable giving officers. It said to them, you can no longer not support each other. If Standard Bank is doing a good deed, you know, NICO, we have to have our NBS Bank join in. Now, maybe Standard Bank gets the biggest banner, but if we don't start helping each other, these projects are never going to work. You cannot be silos. The agencies are silos, the governments are silos, even private sector. So it's very hard. And the biggest thing is everybody likes your idea, but no one wants to pay for it. You know, that's a problem that we seem to have. And so, you know, what are the solutions? They're only a slide away. We'll get there in a second. Okay. So how do you overcome these obstacles? One of those is that one of these ways is to figure out what is necessary, what resources are necessary. And now I'm not only talking about the inventor, which is a very, very basic low-level into the capitalization of these, but also the small business person, the company that's going to service that medical equipment for you, the company that's going to train those nurses or provide support. So you have to figure out what are the resources necessary to deliver there. There's got to be more academic, health institutions, government agencies, and private sector interaction, because every one of those has something very valuable to bring to the table. But if any one of them is out of the equation, it just doesn't work. You need mentoring teams. You've got to get people from the academic areas and professionals, CPAs, lawyers, industry advisors that help people develop. Everybody needs a mentor of some sort. You need to create virtual entities. It is too costly. We have a project going on right now that we've committed hundreds of thousands of dollars to. There is no legal entity. There's not even a written agreement. It involves the government, a private institution, us. You might say, are we crazy? No. The cost of us of formalizing that entity today is too much in case it doesn't work. So these are people we trust in Africa. We've agreed we'll spend some money to figure out, it's a virtual company. We've already had a handshake. You're going to get this much of it. We're going to get this much of it. You're going to pay for these expenses. But frankly, it's not worth going through all the costs of setting up a legal entity until we know we have an idea. Now, that doesn't always work, but many things need to be incubated in a way that'll, and I call those virtual entities. You need to create funds that are not specific to one country. Those barriers are only there because somebody from Britain or some other European country decided to draw a line. You know, from Malawi, you go to Mozambique, they're not sure they're not Malawians and vice versa. You know, you go to a lot of other places. So I met with one of the secretaries of state once, and I tried to tell her that, and she looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, no, you've got to broaden this out. You put an officer to develop trade in Tanzania, well, then you should be working with Malawi also. So there's too many of these sort of country-specific things. They've got to be more regional activities. You need to get the local financial institutions. There's pension plans now, foundations and governments as funding sources. They want a vehicle. They want accountability and governance. That's fine. I agree with that. But they need to step up to the plate themselves and do those things. And the universities need to provide more business training for people that major in other subjects. You know, when I went to school, I took courses on art. You know, I took courses on other things. I worked for the Department of Poultry Science at the University of Florida. You know, I never envisioned myself being a chicken raiser, right? But I learned about other things. And people graduate and they have all this wonderful knowledge, but they have no clue about the most basic concepts of free enterprise, of capitalization, of returns on money. So it's not like everybody has to be an accountant. My family tells me that. I have two of them in the family. But my wife, who's a nurse, tells me that frequently. But I think it's important for the universities to provide more training for that. Now, there are some ways to overcome these obstacles. We are working on some of these things right now. You know, if somebody comes to us, how might we fund the activity? Oftentimes, all they have are their ideas, and they also have no money. So you could take a royalty, you could take a percentage of an item sold, you could help them form a company, you could even make direct, we sometimes give away as a charitable gift, some of it, that's part of our return. Funding should be tied to a borrower having a support team, light but meaningful paperwork, network with other borrowers, and marketing and media support. So hopefully I've given you a few ideas. I'll be around later if you have any questions, because I don't want to hold up the program.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Trish Coffey, and I've been working at PATH for quite a long time. This is actually my 24th year of working at PATH, where I lead a group of people working on end-to-end product and market development in the maternal, newborn, and reproductive health spaces. So I'm just going to share some of my reflections and my thoughts around the science and art of commercialization and scaling up today. And many of these reflections have actually come up already in the last couple of days. So that's the danger of doing your slides well in advance. But anyway, I think it's not bad to reiterate these points, and I'm happy to answer questions about them, of course. So I say science and art because I believe that both commercialization and scale should be data-driven and evidence-based. But at the same time, they require innovative thinking and creativity to craft a strategy and plan that leads to success. So in this talk, I'd also like to acknowledge my longtime collaborator, Mitsumi Metzler, who contributed to this presentation, even though she retired from PATH a few months ago. So she really has a lot of passion for this. So first, I just want to share a little bit about PATH. For those of you who aren't familiar, we're an international NGO. You can go to path.org and read all about everything on the internet. But we basically do end-to-end product and market development across a platform of devices, diagnostics, vaccines, drugs, and digital innovations. But for this talk, I'm going to focus my remarks around the maternal newborn health space. PATH works in over 70 different countries. We have offices in many, but not all of these countries, and we maintain close collaborative working relationships with many ministries of health and other key stakeholders. So now I just want to share a few thoughts around commercialization. So this slide provides a rather busy overview of the 4 goals of our commercialization work and related activities and outcomes, all of which relate directly to improving the availability, accessibility, and affordability of any innovation. So in general, we could characterize the maternal newborn market in low and middle income countries as having a small market size with a strong expectation for a low price, requirements for uncompromised product performance and safety, fragmented procurement without many aggregated buyers or procurers, and a lack of regulatory harmonization. So what do we do in this environment? I'll be touching on 3 areas related to commercialization that, are important to think through as you're developing your strategies. So first is find a committed partner. So collaboration is a key element of success during the entire process of product development through to introduction and scale. PATH uses a collaborative model to develop and market products. We don't manufacture or sell any products, so we are obliged to partner for commercialization and scale and leverage the existing capability of other organizations. Therefore, choosing the right partners and creating effective partnership structures sets up the pathway for commercialization and subsequent scale. The drivers of partnership diversity are many and are listed here on the slide. But simply put, we strive to identify commercialization partners with aligned missions and the capabilities to manufacture quality products and distribute them to some of the target markets. As part of this process, we analyze partners and partner structures and bring technical, market, and financial resources needed for commercialization. But the way we partner also matters. Our partners and the best possible partnership structure are based on careful analysis with an aim to create the best set of complementary skills. Of course, we realize that there will never be the perfect set of complementary skills at the outset. So at the start of a product development process, PATH identifies and fills gaps that partners have. In my experience, it's critical to be realistic when showcasing innovation opportunity to manufacturers. Manufacturers need to be aware of the relatively small market size for maternal newborn products in low and middle income countries. All parties need to align on a rationale for entering the market. Perhaps, most challenging for me has been when a manufacturer has stepped up to make the business decision to advance a technology, and then the market doesn't appear as strongly as anticipated. And this can sometimes result in companies going out of business or closing the product line, which all can be disappointing to see all around. The next thing we want to think about is how to refine product marketing. Sometimes the originally intended use case and the target audience doesn't match up to the wants and needs of the existing market, making it necessary to rethink how to improve market sustainability for the product. A spot urine test to measure the ratio of protein to creatinine, or PR/CR, can improve the accuracy of proteinuria detection compared to a protein-only measurement by accounting for dilution of the patient's urine sample. And the product shown here, the Test-It PR/CR test, developed by Life Assay Diagnostics in collaboration with PATH, is a simple, inexpensive urinalysis strip test. In this case, PATH and country partners defined the need and product requirements for the PR/CR test and collaborated to validate the clinical performance of the product and usability among target end users to support low and middle income country market entry. Hesitancy, though, to task shift from laboratory technicians to providers and difficulty of switching from multi-parameter to 2-parameter tests emerged as significant issues. So this feedback was used to reshape the value proposition of the Test It PRCR test as a tool to effectively monitor high-risk women, especially in countries where multi-parameter dipstick tests are the standard of care, instead of using them for routine antenatal care as originally intended. The hybrid implementation research helped identify areas in pricing and product attributes for further market penetration. And then we want to think also about reducing costs to enter markets with limited size. So there are ways to reduce costs to enter markets with limited size and strong expectations for a low price. De-risking market entry and increasing the business opportunity is an important step to incentivize manufacturers and distributors to enter the low and middle income country maternal newborn market. And one example is the work we did to advance the LIV uterine balloon tamponade, or UBT, which is designed to treat refractory postpartum hemorrhage, and it's shown here on the slide. PATH identified and partnered with Sanofi Biomedical to manufacture the LIV UBT and ensure that the product is available for the public sector procurers in low and middle income countries at a base cost of no more than US $7.50, which is in line with economic modeling data showing that a UBT product can be cost-effective at US $15 or less, based on our cost-effectiveness study that we did in 2017. So to further advance this product, we conducted implementation research in Kenya and Ghana to assess the feasibility and acceptability of integrating and sustaining the use of the LIV UBT in the National Postpartum Hemorrhage Management Package of Care. So a comprehensive training packet, which is available online at liv.com, a poster with detailed user instructions, and the unique free flow mechanism of the device itself really strengthened the integration of the LIV UBT into these health systems. So now I just want to shift slightly to a discussion around scaling up. So when talking about scale, I always think about an article written by Neil Spicer and colleagues entitled "Scaling Up is a Craft, Not a Science." I especially love the title of this article because I agree with the premise. This article, which was written 10 years ago, identified the key activities to catalyze scale, which are listed here on the slide. And in my opinion, these still ring true today. The bottom line is that we, as a global health community, are getting better at knowing what steps are required to scale up, yet the actual trajectory of scaling up is not clear and requires an artful approach that allows the convergence of all these factors at the most opportune moment. So, as we have heard over the last few days, scaling up takes time. This screenshot is from a public database put together by the Duke Global Health Innovation Center as part of the Launch and Scale Speedometer project, which was tasked with teasing out why some global health innovations take off where others fail. And of note is that almost all innovation displayed here has taken at least 10 years to advance, and only one, pediatric TB meds, has made it to an estimated coverage level of 80%. So, as we've already mentioned multiple times, developing and introducing innovations takes a certain amount of time, especially in low and middle income countries. And there are multiple reasons, including demanding requirements and a challenging environment for product use, even though profit-making opportunities are limited, a lack of uninterrupted and sufficient finance for product and market development, and weak healthcare delivery systems. In addition, markets are constantly changing and evolving, and key personnel in target countries change, and target product profiles may need to be modified, and new product champions may need to be identified. So, what are some of the best practices to scale up? I'll talk about these 3 best practices. The first being identifying and nurturing effective product champions. So the chlorhexidine working group, 7.1 chlorhexidine is a gel product for umbilical cord care. So the chlorhexidine working group functioned as a global uptake coordinator and a market manager by working across the domains of policy advocacy, coordination, knowledge management, and technical assistance with participation from more than 30 civil society organizations, universities, ministries of health, pharmaceutical manufacturers, and multilateral organizations. Its composition brought together individuals and agencies with expertise in product development, manufacturing, supply chain, policy, regulatory requirements, program design and implementation, quality assurance, training, demand creation, behavior change communication, and monitoring and evaluation. So the global reach and the collective expertise of the chlorhexidine working group members and their institutions allowed it to offer a broad range of tailored technical assistance in response to requests from country-level partners. So specifically, the chlorhexidine working group supported scale by coordinating efforts for global policy development, managing clinical, technical, and program knowledge, ensuring rational decision-making for resource allocation and priority setting, and aligning demand with high-quality supply. So advancing innovation within an integrated context is also important to think about. Advancing an innovation, as we have heard, by dropping it into a health system with minimal to no integration with the existing package of care doesn't always produce the outcomes that we desire. In this case of our BABE product, and BABE stands for Boosting Access to Bubble CPAP Everywhere, so it's a bubble CPAP and oxygen blenders device. We assume that use of the BABE as part of a comprehensive care package will result in increased survival of small and sick newborns. But key to this approach is that small and sick newborn service delivery goes beyond simply increasing availability and accessibility of the BABE device to incorporate metrics of high-quality use. And this integrated approach to provision of care is critical, as complex interventions such as BABE rely on having the elements of basic neonatal care in place. And this was illustrated through results from a study in a neonatal unit in Malawi, where I'm sure you've all read this study where hypothermic neonates failed to respond to bubble CPAP. And in fact, I think Rice was involved in that study and led that study. So in addition to locally manufacturing our device here, our introduction strategy focuses on building capacity for implementation of comprehensive small and sick newborn care, including the provision of quality bubble CPAP and blender therapy in the public sector health system. So finally, I want to focus on budget advocacy. Robust policy, along with the budget to implement those policies, is critical to achieving improved health outcomes. Policies are only as effective as the extent to which they're implemented, and poor policy implementation holds back efforts to expand equitable access to health services. So research shows that a lack of evidence-based planning, inadequate political commitment and resources, weak capacity of public institutions, and failure to engage communities, frontline workers, and other key stakeholders in decision-making processes lead to suboptimal policy implementation. So PATH convened a consultative process with civil society, advocates, academia, and policymakers operating at national and subnational levels across African countries to develop a tool for effective advocacy around policy implementation. And the name of the tool is listed on the slide there. And a critical component of any policy is, of course, supporting resource allocation. So specific actions delineated in this tool for the policy step around resource allocation are shown on the slide here. So the tool is called From Capital to Clinic, a resource for effective advocacy for policy implementation. You can find it on path.org. So wrapping up, these are just some of our successes in the maternal newborn space over the last 10 years or so, but we don't need to dwell on that. But I do want to dwell on the fact that we couldn't really have any success at all without partners, right? And so this slide just reiterates the range of partners, not all, but some of the partners that we have worked with in the last few years and ways that we collaborate. Our mission hinges on a strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion within our teams and our work. And I just want you all to know, especially the students in the room, that PATH is very open to student internships. So if you're interested in any kind of student internship at PATH, please come and talk to me and we can figure out how to work something out. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you for your attention and happy to answer questions whenever we're doing that.
So my name is Noah. I'm an innovation manager at UNICEF. I'm based in UNICEF Supply Division, Copenhagen. UNICEF has 192 offices globally. And some may wonder how UNICEF does innovations. We do innovations from a public procurement process that we run. And it is not, how do I put it? It is not the same way that most organizations do innovations. We think of ourselves as innovators that try to avoid making new products. We do not make new products at all. In fact, we do not make products at UNICEF. What we try to do is to work with innovators to bring products to scale. So maybe to just dwell a little bit on how we do innovation at UNICEF. As you know, we have, as I have said, we have 192 offices in countries globally. We get ideas for innovations from those country offices. And then the first thing that we do is to look at the market. So we try to find products that are already available. We try to avoid as much as possible making new products because we know how difficult it is to scale products. So we try to avoid that. We also know that companies contribute to global goals when they are making a profit. So we do not encourage companies to make products that we know are not going to scale, that we know are not going to make it on the market. So we try to avoid that from the get-go. So some people talk to us and we discourage them before they even start making the product because we have looked at what is out there and we've talked to our colleagues in the country offices and we think there's no scope for the product that people are trying to work on. So if we can't find a product on the market, what we then do is to do a TPP and then put it out and then begin to talk to industry to say, hey, there's a TPP out there, you may be interested. Can you look at it? Can we work together and try to develop a product? If we find industry that is interested in taking up the manufacture of the products that we have on TPP, we sometimes put incentives to make sure that the product gets developed. We have done this recently. I'll give you more details later. But if we already have a product on the market, what we then do is to just put it on the UNICEF catalog and begin to drive uptake. The UNICEF catalog is, I don't know how you could call it. You could call it the Amazon of the humanitarian sector. You find all sorts of products that can help you to respond to humanitarian circumstances or issues. It serves maybe two functions, the UNICEF catalog. The first function that I think it serves is that it legitimizes products. So when a product is on the UNICEF catalog, countries feel that it has been evaluated, it's a good product, it does good when we buy it. And then the second function it serves is that it makes it easy for our country office colleagues to procure products that are useful. So as I said, we at UNICEF Product Innovation, we look at ourselves as an innovation function that tries very much to avoid making new products. But we do turn ideas into products that give impact. So after talking to our colleagues in the country offices, identify the needs out there. I'm going to talk a little more about those needs. We then, if the products don't exist, we then talk to industry for R&D. We do not do R&D. We do not have any capacity to do R&D at UNICEF. But what we do have is the capacity to work on the demand and on the scaling. So that's why it is desirable for manufacturers to work with us. So what we do is to first start by understanding the need. We talk to our colleagues in the field, and the question that we ask regularly is, what is the pain point that you have? What is it that you think, if you have, could solve your problems in the field? So once we get that from our colleagues in the field, then we look at the market and see if there's a product out there that meets the requirements. Before we start engaging manufacturers, we always, in-house, try to do a business case, because we want to make sure that if you're going to get industry involved, they are going to make a profit. We don't think it's a good idea for people to produce products that are useful and then fail to make it and then go under. Because when they go under, it doesn't serve the children. It's a disservice actually to the children. So we develop a business case, and if you're convinced that there is money that can be made, and if you're convinced that it can be sustainable, then we engage industry, we do a TPP, we engage academia, and we engage all the other players in the space. And I'm sure most of you have engaged with the TPPs that UNICEF has worked on with NEST. We just use this to communicate the needs, what we want to see out there that is not available. And we have checked with practitioners, and they say this is required and this is necessary. So the TPP informs industry, and then from UNICEF, what we do then is we engage in a co-creation process. We talk with industry as they are developing, following the TPP, as they are developing the products, we talk with them regularly. Roger was engaged with us recently when we're doing the low resource setting oxygen concentrator. We had numerous meetings to try and clarify the requirements of the TPP, to make sure that when the product is out, it is something that can go in the market and make a difference. So specifically on the concentrator, when we started talking about a concentrator that is fit for purpose in low resource settings, the challenge that we encountered was people like Roger and all the other manufacturers. They said, our current concentrator is selling very well. Why should we cannibalize our own market? Because you want a product that is fit for purpose in low resource settings. So we put in place an advanced purchase commitment to try and encourage the manufacturers to engage with us. We put 8 million, and we said, if you do a product that meets the specifications, that meets the requirements of the TPP, we're going to buy 8 million worth. And I'm happy to report that I think by end of October, the first products that meet that TPP are going to be going to countries. So we have a concentrator that works very well in low resource settings where power is an issue. So we have a concentrator that can work on solar and that can work in dusty environments, very hot, very humid, but it still produces oxygen that is of the required purity. So we put in place incentives where it is not clear what kind of profit, or if there's no clear motivation for industry to participate. So in short, when we don't have a product, UNICEF does a TPP. We include others in the TPP. We publish externally. We consult broadly, and then we start working with industry to develop the product. In the way we do our innovation processes, we run a structured process. We have stage gates. I'm sure most of you are aware of the stage gates. We have a stage gate process, and we have a formal governance system. So each and every one of our projects that we are running goes to what we call an innovations review board, and the board has power to close a project. They can say, this project is not viable, you need to close it. And I think since the innovation team was started in UNICEF around 2010, we've closed around 50 to 60 projects. So we actually start projects and then close them when we think they're not viable. So on this slide, we have some of the projects that we are currently working on. We have quite a few that are in what we call transition to scale. So these are projects that we think are right there where we need to push them out of our system. So as UNICEF, we last year had throughput of 5 billion, which is quite huge. And most of that was in goods. 3.5 billion was in goods. So we use this as UNICEF as a mechanism to drive innovation, because we can talk to manufacturers. They understand that we can get throughput through our system, right? So it's a superpower, if you may. We have 5 billion worth of procurement going through us. We have a huge global footprint, and we work very closely with governments. We have a very good reputation in country, so we have good convening power. So if there's a product or if there's a system that needs to be scaled, we think we are the right people to be convening and taking good innovations to scale. As somebody said, I think it was Tore who said, there are no silver bullets in innovation, or indeed in public health. It's systems that save lives. It's not products. Getting products to scale is a complex process. That's what we have seen in UNICEF. So I'm going to now go into what we have seen, trying to drive scale for products that we work on. One of the biggest challenges that we see when we talk to innovators, to manufacturers, is that they conflate need and demand. Need, you could say, it's your total addressable market. It can be huge. The problems, the challenges, when you look at LMICs, they are huge. But funded demand of that need, how much of that has money behind it? That's what should interest a business. But when we talk to innovators, usually their minds are on the total addressable market, is on what is out there. The problem is so huge, children are dying of pneumonia, so if I come up with a solution, it's going to fly. It doesn't fly. We have put products in the UNICEF catalog, and they have not flown. They have stayed in the shelves. They have not moved at all. So what we do, if we don't see movement in the product after 2 years, we take it out of the catalog, because it takes resources to maintain products in the UNICEF catalog. So we focus on demand when we're trying to drive scale of innovations. And by demand, I mean funded demand. So demand generation, what we know is that it needs political will. It needs funding. You need to have funding in place. And in the case of LMICs, what we have seen is that governments do not have resources. And whenever you go to a government with a new product, what you're basically asking them to do is to remove money from vaccines to put it in your product. So you must be sure that dollar for dollar is better for your product than for vaccines because there is no money in LMICs. So this is what we have seen. So very, very important for us to have this at the back of our minds. When we go with the product, there is no money. There is very little room. The budgets are very, very tight. So what do we do? Because there is no money, but we want products to be moving. What do we do? I think what we need to do from all of us within the humanitarian sector is an understanding that in LMICs, the situation is quite complex. The people who benefit from the product are not necessarily the ones who choose the product. They are not necessarily the ones who pay for the product. And in some cases, they're not even the ones who use the product. So the people who choose, the people who use, the people who benefit, it's a different beast. So when you're saying, first understand your customer, in LMIC context, it's a very complex message. What do you really mean? Do you mean the guy who's going to be using? Because the person who chooses the product maybe is somebody who sits in the Ministry of Health at headquarters. And he's choosing because there's a donor who says he's going to pay. And the person who uses in the hospital maybe has no say on the product that is going to be at the place placed on order. So it's very complex. So we need to understand that the person who pays, the person who chooses, the person who uses, and the person who benefits, different people, very, very different people. So what does this do to products that we work on? I'm sure you've seen this graph before. Most products die at the beginning, right? The first value of death. But the second value of death is a lot more difficult to come out from because it's a lot deeper. That's the place where you need to have a lot more support. But what we have seen is that when you start an innovation project, you have a lot of money. People want to support you when you are starting. So everybody wants to put seed funding. Everybody wants to have catalytic funding. So very early on, you have some money. But later on, when you really need money to scale, there are no resources. So we need to educate partners in the humanitarian sector that the real deal is the money that is required to scale products. It is the money that is required to scale innovations. It is easy at the beginning. So the demand challenge is that what we see here is that there is a lack of attention at the second value of death. Most focus at the beginning. People focus on the supply side of things. So we want to make sure that a product has been developed. There's a lot of support for that. So when I was listening to some earlier presentations, people received funding at the beginning to start the innovations. But actually, the resources are required a lot more when you want to scale the product. Because in LMICs, there are no resources to buy. There's a lack of appreciation and focus on who buys. And the result is that commercially available products that communities want, products that are backed by good science, they cannot scale because there are no resources. So we need to educate ourselves in this sector that we need resources for scaling products at the end. So some of the levers that we have identified to scale innovations, we need to begin influencing established funds so that there are financing opportunities for innovations. There's a Gavi for vaccines, right? So if there are new vaccines, they can receive funding, they can be funded, and things work well. but we do not have anything of that sort for innovations. We don't have support for products so that they can go above the value of death. The second thing that we have identified as UNICEF is that we are trusted by both governments and manufacturers. And that position of trust that we're given is quite important. So what we do is before we take on a product, before we choose to work on a product, we scrutinize it. We make sure that it is the right fit. Because if we make a mistake, we are going to be recommending governments to remove money from key interventions that save lives to put on products that maybe work well, but will not be as beneficial as the currently existing interventions. So we are a tough gatekeeper. I receive a lot of emails every week from manufacturers, from innovators. They have products that they want us to look at. We don't have the manpower to look at all the products that people are working on. So what we tend to say is, if you have a product that you think we should look at, first look at the TPPs that we've put out. If your product meets the TPP that we've put out, then come, let us talk, let's see where this can fit in the scheme of things. So we are a very, very tough gatekeeper. We do not accept products that easily. What we've also realized is that there is inefficient use of resources in some instances. So what we have tended to do now is to develop tools to help, whether it's governments or health facilities, to do their procurement or their planning. So during COVID, we developed what we call the oxygen system planning tool. It helps to plan an oxygen system to roll it out. We worked with quite a few partners, WHO, CHAI, and others. It will tell you exactly what you need and the consumables that you need for however many months. And it also details the kind of maintenance that you require, energy costs, quite detailed. We've also done the same for newborn health, for newborn technologies. We have a tool that you can use to plan, say, a NICU, and it gives you in detail the kind of items that you require. Because what we noticed when we're looking, before we started working on these tools, would go into the history of procurements from country. Country procures 100 CPAP machines and nothing else. And you think, but how are they going to use these devices? No consumables, no concentrators, no nothing. They've just bought CPAP machines. What is going on? Then we realized that the people who make the procurement decisions sometimes don't have the technical expertise. They don't know what is required. So we have put out tools that help with rational planning. What we've also done is to leverage public and private service providers like VIA. I've been talking to Noah most of this afternoon. So like VIA and others, so that we can make products that we think are impactful available. The other thing that we do is just a step-by-step, very difficult process, just step-by-step, looking at the plans that our country offices have made together with government. So when we're introducing the NASG in countries, what we did is we went through plans of different countries to see who was planning to reduce maternal mortality that was caused by PPH in their countries. And we found a couple of countries, and then we started just calling them to say, hey, this is your plan, how are you going to do it? Which products are you going to be using? And then we would tell them about the products that we use. So it's a very difficult process to go through, but the benefit is this is an agreed plan between government, UNICEF, and WHO. So when you give them products, they have a chance to succeed. They have a chance to scale in that environment. Then the last bit is we try to install a profit logic in some of the things that we do. So during COVID, we shipped a lot of oxygen PSA plants. And now, of course, like everybody else, we realize that countries are struggling to keep them running. They don't have the resources, they don't have the expertise. In some of the countries, the power supply is erratic, diesel is expensive. So what we're trying to do currently is to encourage public-private partnerships where private enterprise links with government to run these big PSA plants and provide oxygen to government. And then if they are producing extra, they can sell the extra for a profit. We are working on this now in Liberia. If we hope we'll succeed. If we succeed, we will take it to other countries. So the other bit is just trying to make these PSA plants a little easier to run for governments. So, for example, in places where power is an issue, we have installed or we are installing solar plants, solar energy plants, and we are installing heat exchangers because the oxygen PSA plant generates a lot of heat, and most facilities need heated water. But in most cases, this heat is just expelled and not used. So we recapture this heat and we reuse it in the health facility to heat the water. We've also done some tools to support the maintenance of the oxygen PSA plants. Finally, a quotation from my boss, Christopher. So if we do a lot of these nice, beautiful products, but do not know who's going to buy these products, they don't help anyone. The gadgets we make, the products we make, for them to make an impact, there has to be a buyer. And the way we see it from the UNICEF side, this is where the big challenge is at the moment. I have examples after this slide of some of the work that we have done, but I'm not going to go into that. Thank you.